Okay, you're live. Thanks.
Did you say we're good, John?
Yes, you're good.
Okay, thank you. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the September 20th, 2021 Town Council meeting. If you will please join me in saying the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. So tonight, before we get started, we have some special guests, some special community volunteers, and I am first going to call forward via Zoom as best as we can do that. Our guest, Mukan, I see you are there. Yes, hello. And you are here with some others. Would you like to introduce them?
Yeah, so I'm not sure who else is joined, but I see Vipul Kashyap.
Hi.
Part of the same group. Yeah, the others probably might have had some other
They're probably still coming. Okay, so well, I wanted first thank you for being here tonight and give everyone a little background. So we have an organization that does quite a bit for Rocky Hill, and it is called Hindu Swayam Sevak Sangh. And we say HSS for short, yes. Okay, so we have a resolution for you and your organization for everything that you do for not just the community of Rocky Hill, but for other municipalities, for the state of Connecticut, as well as across the United States, and I'm sure globally. So we definitely appreciate that. So I have a proclamation for you that I'm going to read now into the record. So in appreciation of Hindu Swayam Sevak Sangh, HSS, September 20th, 2021. Whereas Hindu Swayam Sevak Sangh, HSS, is a socio-cultural organization that strives to create awareness about the Hindu cultural heritage worldwide and embodies the spirit of community, which we as a town know and recognize to be a necessary pillar of our sustainability. And whereas HSS mission has had a direct positive impact upon our community, and through numerous initiatives, it has provided resources to aid local residents throughout the global COVID-19 pandemic, and has shown compassion for individuals and families struggling with food insecurity, as exemplified through its generous donations to the Rocky Hill Food Pantry. And whereas nationwide, HSS helped 27 states and 198 cities with 2,049 volunteers as part of its COVID-19 response, which included food donations, mask making, grocery donations, online activities, networking, and counseling and helplines. And whereas on the occasion of Diwali, nearly 179 organizations came together to contribute non-perishable food items to pantries across the country. Over a 2-month period, organizations collectively donated 294,000 pounds of food to 199 food pantries, soup kitchens, and shelters in 225 cities across 26 states under Seva Diwali initiative. And whereas on August 21st, 2021, HSS celebrated Raksha Bandhan Kausav, and which is a festival of united brotherhood and universal brotherhood, with a beautiful ceremony that recognized the contributions of our Rocky Hill Police Department and our fire department for protecting the community. And whereas on May 23rd, 2021, HSS celebrated Guru Vandan, by honoring teachers from Rocky Hill and across the state with a beautiful student-led ceremony. Teacher, culturally known as Guru, holds a very respectable stature in Hindu philosophy, next only to one's parents. And now therefore be it resolved that I, Lisa J. Murata, Mayor of the town of Rocky Hill, recognize Hindu Swayan Sevak Sangh, HSS, for their contributions, particularly the acts of its Rocky Hill membership, as they exemplify an outstanding degree of compassion for our community. I call upon all Rocky Hill citizens to join me in recognizing HSS for its inspiring commitment to ensuring the celebration of the diversity within our community. Congratulations. You're welcome. Is there anything you'd like to say? I don't want to cut you off if there is.
Sure, I wasn't sure if this is the right time for me to speak, but yeah, if you give me a couple of minutes, I would like to just thank the town of Rocky Hill as well as Mayor Ms. Murata for issuing this proclamation. So I basically received this on behalf of this organization called HSS, and this means a lot to us. So thank you very much for recognizing the work that's being done by this organization in US and across the globe. Now this organization, as you said, it's a voluntary, nonprofit, social and cultural organization. We essentially encourage maintaining the Hindu cultural identity in harmony with the larger community here in US as well as across the globe. It is inspired by a very broad idea that the whole world is one family, and we conduct the activities across United States in order to spread that message widely. As you said, I think you talked about a few numbers. So there are around 200 plus chapters that are there in US, which are running weekly programs for the entire family, focusing on team building, character building, yoga, and games. We conduct a bunch of activities throughout the year. I think the mayor mentioned few. We have Yogathon, which is a sun salutation program that happens in the month of January. The Universal Openness Day, which is Raksha Bandhan, recognizing the protectors of the society. The Teachers Appreciation Day, which is Guru Vandana, which is recognizing the effort by all the teachers towards our kids. And Seva Diwali, which is essentially more of the community program to help the needy people. And then that's the overall structure and the activities that are being done by this organization. So I really thank you, Mayor, plus the town of Rocky Hill, for recognizing this support. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you. We appreciate you tremendously, and we will meet up in person and deliver your proclamation.
I hope so, very soon. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, and we are going to move on to our second proclamation, which is Cupcakes for a Cause. And I believe we have Natalie Olmsted, Kira Potter, and Lily Saproso. So I would like to share with you a proclamation for these girls. And they will each receive one that is made out specifically for the three of them. So it says, whereas Kira Potter, Natalie Olmsted, and Lily Saporoso organized a cupcake drive, which was called Cupcakes for a Cause, to support the Rocky Hill Police Department's K-9 unit. And whereas the girls baked a large variety of cupcakes on their own, including blueberry, raspberry swirl, chocolate, salted caramel, cookies and cream, and sold them at a roadside table for $2 a piece. And whereas the first cupcake sale was held in July and sold out completely, raising close to $1,000. And whereas they held a second sale that was held in September, which sold out in less than an hour, raising nearly another $900. Now, therefore, be it resolved that I, Lisa J. Murata, Mayor of the town of Rocky Hill, hereby recognize these three young ladies for their unique and commendable determination to give back and to support others, and call upon all our residents to join me in recognizing these young ladies that represent the heart and spirit of our community. And do I have any of those families here? I know I have Mr. and Mrs. Olmsted. I see you there, but I don't see my full screen. So if I have anyone who wishes to be heard on these proclamations, let me know. Otherwise, we will be delivering these in person with a special celebration soon. So big shout out to both of our proclamation recipients this evening. Thank you so much for all that you do.
Hi.
Oh, hi. Hi there.
My name
Are
is
you Miss Kira
Potter.
Potter?
Yeah.
Hi, how are you? Would you like to say something, honey?
Yeah.
Okay.
This is something that we really wanted to do, and we were glad it was so successful. And we ended up raising just over $2,000. And just thank you for recognizing us.
Well, it's our honor, and we want to thank you for everything that you have done for our police department and especially our K-9 unit. And it was a big undertaking. How old are you?
I'm 11.
Okay, so I assume your friends are about that same age. Yeah, well, you guys did a great job. So thank you on behalf of the entire town. We appreciate you. Great job. Okay.
Mayor, I think you're on mute.
You're muted.
All right, well, that won't help. Thank you, Mr. Duff. So we're going to move on to public comment. This portion of the meeting is specifically set aside for comments from the public who are asked to limit their comments to 2 minutes. Any person interested in providing public comment should email publicmeetings@rockyhillct.gov or call 860-258-7682. And you will be provided with a link to attend the Zoom remote meeting, excuse me, and instructions on how you will participate. And I believe I have 3 folks in the queue. And I'm going to start, is there an Ann Pate?
Yes.
Carl and Ann Pate. Yeah.
Carl and Ann Pate. So you stated your names. Can you please just state your address?
Sure. 26 Washington Street.
Okay, so go ahead.
Just to let the town council know that this will be the 42nd year that the Pacific Southern Railroad will be holding its annual show. The proceeds of the donations go to the Rocky Hill Fire Company and the Rocky Hill First Aid and Rescue Squad. It's a large model railroad that is about 4,000 square foot of trains, bridges, circus train, you name it. 1 weekend only. It's the 23rd and 24th of October. That's a Saturday, Sunday. The hours of the shows are 10, 11, 12, 2, 3, and 4. Masks are required. You purchase the tickets here. The advertisements, media has indicated that there's no reservations, about a 45-minute show. There is a website, and if you drive by 26 Washington Street, if you're of the older generation, you'll notice the Burma Shave signs, but it's not Burma Shave. Advertising that the train show right now is coming next month. The next month will change to this month, next week, and a weekend. So
October 23rd and 24th. And all proceeds go to the Rocky Hill Fire Company and the Rescue Squad.
right.
So we just wanted to
Just wanted you all know
let
and
the
spread the word.
council know.
I'll also add something new this year that we've never done before. We've established a partnership with the Montgomery school system.
Right.
That's elementary, junior, and high schools. If a individual family comes that's part of that school, and they'll be told this here, they write their name and the school on the back of the donation, which is $10 a person. $1 will go back to the PTA for every ticket that arrives. That's something new that we're trying. So
Right.
hopefully you guys can spread the word.
Yeah, that's the other thing, as we've heard, word of mouth is the best thing. So please keep us in mind.
Thank you. You're muted.
Muted. We're not allowed to engage in conversation back and forth. So I don't want you to think we're being disrespectful, but we are very grateful. So thank you very, very much.
Thank you.
And I will call James Kavanaugh. Okay, we can circle back. I had Karen Potter, but I'm going to speculate that Miss Potter was here for the Cupcake Girls. Okay, so no James Kavanaugh. Going once, going twice, and we're going to move on to our next section, appointments and resignations. Counselor Duff, do you have anything to report?
We do not.
Okay. Deputy Mayor Sharma?
No, nothing to report.
Okay, thank you. Moving on to the approval of the minutes from the council meeting August 16th, 2021, which is in your packet. Is there a motion to approve?
Madam Mayor, I'd like to make a motion to accept the minutes of August 16th, 2021.
Thank you.
Second.
Okay, any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, I'm just going to try to adjust my screen before moving on so I can see everybody. Okay, there we are. Moving on to subcommittee reports, beginning with finance.
Thank you, Mayor. The Finance Committee did meet on September 14th. I would like to congratulate Mona McKim on her appointment as Finance Director. I see Mona's on the call. Welcome, Mona, and congratulations on your new position. This evening on the consent agenda, we have an authorization or a resolution to accept a grant for our affordable housing planning. It's a $15,000 grant, and this will be used in conjunction with the $20,000 that was set aside in this year's budget cycle to hire a consultant to help us formulate our affordable housing plan program. Also, we received some positive news that our defined benefits have grown significantly as of the end of June 2021. Hopefully that doesn't change after today's market decline. But the general employee fund had a change year over year of $11.6 million. The police department had a increase of $7.2 million. The volunteer ambulance had an increase of $226,000, and the volunteer fire department had an increase of $413,000. Those growths were all in the neighborhood of about $28,000. So that's some positive growth, strong market helping us with our pensions. Also on our agenda this evening, under new business, is a discussion of uses in the American Rescue Plan funds, Tranche 1. We received approximately $2.9 million in funding. We have committed already $1.4 million. So we have $1.5 million to be part of this evening's discussion. Our next meeting is scheduled for October 14th.
Thank you. Government operations.
Yes, government operations had their meeting back on September 7th, just a few of the highlights. Fire station roof 3, the contractor has been selected and the install date is still to be determined due to a material shortage. So once they can get materials, I imagine they'll get moving on that. The Rock Hill High School electronic sign at our meeting was still waiting for some bricks to finish the work, but the sign itself is working. It'll be operational from 6:20 a.m. until 9 p.m. every day. The West Hill HVAC replacement project, they finished their inside work. 2 of the 5 units that are going to be installed upon the roof have been completed. The other 3 are to be installed Columbus Day weekend. At least that's the schedule right now. And lastly, and maybe John Mayer could give us an update on this, there was a drainage issue at the Community Senior Center in one of the restrooms. Hopefully the resolution will not be overly disruptive, but maybe Town Manager John Mayer can provide an update since then. Or maybe there's not an update at this point, I'm not sure.
Or we could do it during that part of the agenda.
Okay, that's fine. That's the extent of the update from government operations.
Okay. Moving on to public safety.
Sure, public safety met earlier this evening, and I can report that in the fire department, they had 74 calls to respond to. They're up about 14%. Year to date, 465 calls. Training hours were at 268 hours. Year to date, 2,358 training hours. One fire injury, minor, 5 year to date. I can report that staffing levels are good. Their COVID vaccine compliance rate is 73% and soon to be just is slightly bit higher than that. So they're doing well there. The fire department, Chief Garrahy and his department ran a wonderful 9/11 ceremony in town on 9/11, and they also attended the Veterans Hospital's celebration or memorial for 9/11 as the color guard for that service and did a fantastic job. The police department reporting that they had almost 3,200 calls for service in August, 3,189, bringing their year-to-date total for 2021 to 25,902 calls for service. 17 criminal arrests, 24 motor vehicle accidents, 22 infractions issued, 121 warnings issued. So they had about 153 or so motor vehicle stops this past month. They did 4 community service events and had 142 hours of training. They did receive a grant from the state for $35,000 to go to policing for their overtime charges to help offset. And I imagine most of that is going to be overtime with regards to increased patrols around our neighborhoods. There's one officer due. So of the 2 new positions hired, one is very far along in the pipeline and will be online in October. And the other one didn't go through, so there's 2 apps out in the field to be completed, but the police department is running at full staff when those are staffed. The ambulance reported 94 training hours. They had 408 calls with their year-to-date call volume at 2,689 calls. And they are running at optimum staffing level. They call it membership. They will be providing backup. Well, they'll be at the September 24th VA hospital stand down event. And they provided the backup to our 9/11 ceremonies in town at both the VA and the fire department ceremony. And the health district has reported that in the age groups of 64, from 18 years old to 64 years old, we have a 70% vaccination rate, and they're asking for help to spread the word to see if we can't get up over the 70% vaccination mark. And they are saying that the 12-year-old to 17-year-old range is only at 58.7%. So they would like you to get the word out to see if we can get the 12-year-olds to 17-year-olds better vaccinated for this coming season. The total case count in Rocky Hill, 2013 with 127 deaths. And our next meeting will be October 18th.
Okay, thank you. Senior Liaison?
Senior Liaison met on August 23rd. As is noted tonight under Old Business Community Senior Center, the ribbon cutting that was originally scheduled for the 18th of September was postponed. It's rescheduled, I believe, now for October 2nd, and I'm sure we'll get an update later on. The town is scheduling drive-through flu clinics on October 5th and October 14th. The senior center is looking for new members, and membership is free to all Rocky Hill residents and is $20 to non-residents. They can reach out to Gina Marino, our director, and she'll be able to handle membership. We are also in the process of renaming the newsletter, and information on that was in September's newsletter. So people that have submissions can submit new names. I believe the current name is the Pivotal. It's been that for many years. From what I understand, it relates to Rocky Hill being the center or the pivot point of the state. The other item from Human Services is the Rocky Hill Food Pantry is well stocked, and anybody that is in need or has food insecurities can contact Human Services at 860-258-2724. Our next meeting is scheduled for September 27th.
Thank you. Moving on to Land Acquisition and Farmland Preservation.
Open Land Acquisition and Farmland Preservation Committee did meet on August 24th by a remote meeting at 6 p.m. Regarding the parcel B cleanout, it was indicated that it should be finishing up around the second week of September. That's some leftover debris, piles of wood and brush and so forth. The last major storm did slow things down just a bit. Regarding the parcel B remediation, staff met with Zuvik, the testing firm, to review and revise the proposals in an attempt to reduce costs for their environmental services. They will need about 2 weeks to complete the proposal from that point in time, which the final docs will then be submitted over to the ECD for their completion of assistance agreement. And that alone could take up roughly about 60 days to execute. So at this time, the overall project timeline has been updated to include a 1 month delay and very much dependent on the ECD scheduling aspect. With regards to the land use plan, UConn has responded with interest to work with the town, along with possibly attending the next Farmland Preservation Committee meeting for overall introductions, gain some input from committee, and commence discussions regarding some high-level planning topics. Our next meeting is scheduled for 20th of September, our Land Acquisition Farmland Preservation Committee meeting minutes.
Is there any discussion with respect to mowing the grass on New Road? That, in that strip that around the perimeter of the farm?
I think we did mow it a few weeks ago. Just, I guess, the availability of the mower that tends to seem to break down on a regular basis. But there is always plans to do it if we do have the equipment that's working.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Councilor Malero. Moving on to liaison to the state representative and to the state senator.
No report.
How about school liaison?
No meeting, no report, Madam.
Okay, thank you. Capital Improvements Committee.
Our last meeting was rescheduled to September 29th. Assuming that works with everybody's calendar, we will plan on a meeting and have a report at our next council meeting.
And what time is that?
I believe that's 6 o'clock.
Thank you. And then finally, the Economic Development Subcommittee.
We have not met, no report.
Okay. Moving on to the consent agenda, we have one item, the resolution for the Affordable Housing Planning Grant.
Madam Mayor, I'll make a motion to approve the Affordable Housing Planning Grant.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, great. Moving on to old business discussion, possible action, Community Senior Center.
John, you're on mute.
I believe John Murphy has a video he took as he walked through the senior center. Should last about 5 minutes. Correct, John?
Yes, sir. I can play that right now.
I think they're waiting.
You can see that?
I can.
Yeah, we see it.
Okay.
John, you did a really nice job with that tile.
John, what happened to the music?
Thank you, John. It's beautiful.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you, John.
That was awesome.
Is that going to go up on the website somewhere for folks who maybe not have gotten a chance to see it there or can view it?
It certainly can, and it'll be on our YouTube channel as part of this meeting, or I can upload it separately. Yep.
Well, thank you for sharing that.
You're welcome.
Okay, you can see quite a bit is done. It's pretty much finished. The contractor is working on the punch list, which we hope to be finished by this Wednesday. We still have 3 issues at hand. The first one is Jeff was mentioning the rear parking lot by the police station parking lot. The drainage pipe was too high, wasn't taking the water in. The contractor came back, lowered it, and now it is draining properly. And we're just waiting for the site contractor to schedule to come back and pave that. Also in the off of the game room, there's an I believe an emergency exit with a ramp that goes down. So it's recommended by building and the fire marshal for public safety purposes that that ramp should have a railing and better exterior lighting. So we're waiting for those to come in and be installed, as well as the railings and the light. And then the third item was the bathrooms that were in place in the former community center by the ramp leading down to the so-called cafeteria area. There's a men's room at the top of the ramp and a ladies' room at the bottom of the ramp. Those were included and pretty much left alone during construction, being included in the calculations for a number of toilets needed based on the capacity of the people attending a building and so on. When they reopened, we thought they had a plug in it. We had a number of people, contractors come in with snakes and whatever to try to, and cameras to try to figure out where the blockage was and so on. We eventually got a contract in there that works on more sewer pipe type of problems, and discovered that we have a collapsed pipe. It's from probably the 1970s. It was a clay pipe, and it's collapsed, causing the blockage for the bathrooms, sanitary runoff, and so on. So at this moment now, those 2 bathrooms are closed to the public, and it does have an effect on our calculation for toilets needed for the capacity of the building and so on. The contractors and so on are working on a solution for this. If we had to replace or fix the clog in the clay pipe, you'd probably have to go down 6 feet and through one of the offices in the new community senior center. A better option available, hopefully we can do, is to, as you saw in John's film, the health office, there is a sanitary pipe that runs from there down the former sloping walkway that we could hook the 2 bathrooms to. It would be probably breaking into the floor, but it wouldn't be digging up an office 6 feet down and so on. So again, that item's being worked on. So as of right now, we're still planning on doing the October 2nd grand opening. Because of some building code and fire codes, we may have to shut down the game room as well as the thrift shop in order to reduce capacity to meet our toilets that are available. And we would like to do probably a quick ceremony around 10 o'clock and then open it up for the public to take a walk through between 10 and 12, all depending on various situations from COVID, masking, and so on. So after that, senior services as well as parks will try to start making use of the new center with some programs that meet the requirements of our capacity and so on. So again, well, that's the plan at the moment. We'll probably update it at the senior liaison meeting on Monday, but we hope to do it the opening on October 2nd from 10 to 12, as well as start having programs taking place in the new community center. Now, one thing that could hinge on it is depending on what we do to fix the 2 bathrooms that don't have proper sanitation drainage. If we do something as far as construction, we may have to close the center down for a week or 2 during the construction phase and so on. But again, that's being looked in and discussed at the moment by our contractors and building committees. So that's sort of the update on the community senior center.
Okay, thank you. And now moving on to new business, the moment Mimi and I have been waiting almost a year for. We're going to have a presentation on solid waste and recycling of residents' trash and towns recycling consultants. So I would like to introduce to you Pam Roach, who is our new Rocky Hill Materials Management Consultant, as well as Kristen Brown, who is a consultant for DEEP on all things sustainable materials management. And so we have heard much from these ladies over the course of the past several months through our CCSMM membership on trying to figure out how we as a community can begin to address what we are calling the waste crisis now that Mira is closing, and of course we are a Mira town. And so what do we do with all of our recycling and all of our food scraps and all of our regular garbage? So these 2 women are here to present one option for us and talk a little bit about what is kind of going on in the state and how we might be able to move forward. So I will turn it over to you, ladies.
Hi, thank you, Lisa. I'm Pam Roach, and we're going to work on waste reduction programs as best we can. We are, as Lisa mentioned, the mayor mentioned, we are in a waste crisis. When Mira closes, about 400,000 pounds are going to be getting shipped out of state. Already 200,000 pounds are getting shipped out of state landfills. And out of state landfills are going to be closing as well. So at any point they can say, we're not going to take your waste anymore. Also, the Mira plant is closing on or before June 30th. So it could break down any day now, which would mean that any day now we'll be shipping that out of state. So we really, are in a situation where we need to reduce our trash, and the state through the CCSMM meetings that Lisa referred to, we had 4 working groups, and we met all last fall and meeting into this year as well. Katie Dykes, the commissioner, is really very motivated, and we were trying to have some programs mandated, and because the state wouldn't mandate, she just said, well, then I want $5 million. And she got it. So they are allocating, Connecticut Deep is allocating $5 million for waste reduction programs in the state of Connecticut, pilot programs. So they want to have maybe 10 towns have pilot programs. Meriden is going to be the first because they've already been approved. And then once we do that next year, this fiscal year, she will ask for more, another $5 million. That's the plan, I believe. And Kristen, correct me if I'm wrong with that, but I'm pretty sure she's pretty she's pretty motivated. It's pretty great. We're lucky to have her there to help us along. This is the most I've seen the state, most support I've seen in the state in all the years I've been working in waste and recycling. I won't tell you how many that is, but I will tell you that Kristen Brown has been working on these programs for, I'll say 25 years. I'll be nice about that, but she's worldwide and has wonderful examples and great information. And I'll turn this over to Kristen. And Kristen, are you able to share your screen?
I am, so I think I can do that.
And I will let you take it from there.
Perfect. So good evening, Mayor. Thank you for having me, Mayor, council members. I appreciate the opportunity to talk tonight. I'm going to tell you a little bit about what is happening in the state, and hopefully, wait a minute, you can see my screen. Oh no. Okay. Yeah. So hopefully, are you seeing pictures of yourselves or the slides? Huh. Okay. How's that? Better. All right. Great. So again, thanks for having me. As Pam mentioned, I've been doing this for about 30 years, so I do know a lot about trash. I've primarily focused on residential waste reduction strategies in the United States, specifically in the Northeast, but also some on the West Coast. And I've also worked on waste reduction in Europe as well. So I want to give you a high-level overview of what's happening in the state, in case you haven't been able to listen to recordings of all the CCSMM meetings. And then I also want to talk to you more about the grant opportunity and how Rocky Hill can participate in that. So as both the mayor and Pam mentioned, we have a capacity crisis in Connecticut. It's not really just because the Mira facility is closing. This is something that's happening really all over the United States, and it has been happening for quite some time. It's really difficult to site a new landfill or a new waste to energy facility. So you can see this bottom chart here. 30 years ago, we had over 6,000 landfills in the US, and today we have just over 1,000 landfills remaining in the US. So the capacity for burying our trash continues to decrease. We also have currently about 75 waste to energy facilities in the US where the waste can be burned, which is what you do in Connecticut. You have 5 facilities in the state currently. All of those facilities throughout the US, except one, is over 30 years. And technically those facilities have about a 30-year life before they begin to break down and need more repair and need more capital investment. So these facilities do also have a limited life, like the landfill. And we expect all of those facilities will close certainly within 20 years. But really, as Pam mentioned, any one of them could close at any time, just depending on the investment that's required to continue operating. So the disposal capacity is expected to shrink. It's not expected to really grow at all. It's really, as I mentioned, difficult to site a new landfill. Obviously, you probably don't want one in Rocky Hill. It was difficult for Mira to get the funding it needed to continue on and to renovate that facility. So we expect a new way of looking at trash throughout the US, seeing it a little bit more in New England and on the West Coast, and they're calling it materials management. So thinking about your trash differently, thinking of it not as trash, but as materials that could be diverted and moved back into the economy. So the other thing I wanted to touch on is the cost of recycling. So something that you may have read in the New York Times or Wall Street Journal over the past couple of years, recycling has been costing municipalities money, primarily because markets do go up and they do go down, and we have been in a down market recently. but also because China used to take a lot of our recyclable material, and in 2017 and 2018, they stopped taking a significant amount of the material. So we were sort of stuck in the U.S. We had to rebound and figure our way out of this cycle, which we have done. So we have significant paper capacity that has come online, significant plastic recycling capacity that has also come online. And kind of at the same time here, we also have had, the recycling industry has had a positive effect from COVID in that we need more materials, more packaging than ever because of all of the Amazon shipping that we're seeing for all of the online shopping that everyone is doing. So this is just looking at paper as one of the examples. You can see the average 10-year running average for paper per ton was $107. And in the month of September, it's averaging at $195. So we seem to be coming out and we expect to have a pretty good run for the next 4 or 5 years before we, go through that same cycle again of the up and down commodity markets. So really the important part to understand here is that the cost of trash is continuing to decrease. We don't expect that to be something that comes down. And the cost of recycling is expected to just continue to do the same up and down movement it has been over the past several decades. This is a look based on estimated tipping fees. That's the amount of money you pay per ton for disposal at the facilities, MIRA or whatever facility you're bringing the material to. We're expecting costs to go up significantly, looking at somewhere around $27 to $25 million for Rocky Hill cumulatively over the next 30 years just to throw away your trash. So trash really is an expensive part of the tax bill. It's a small portion when you look at your overall budget, but it does add up. And as those prices continue to exponentially grow, it's important to think about how you can divert those materials to other places. These two lines here represent some key programs that DEEP feels if municipalities implement, you would see significantly lower cumulative cost over the next 30 years. A critical part of the waste stream is food or organic material. Organic material makes up about 40% of the material that we burn in the waste to energy facilities currently in Connecticut. This organic material is food waste, could be recyclable or soiled paper towels, and yard debris or yard clippings make up that majority of the 40%. So you can see that organic material is here in the green. So a really important way to reduce the overall tipping costs to a municipality is to figure out the best way to divert this organic material out of the waste stream, this 40%. So the two programs that I'm going to talk about next are programs that involve the idea of separating organic material, food waste at the household. Some of you may have attended some of the CCSM meetings, and we talked a lot about something called unit-based pricing. Unit-based pricing is the single most effective action that a municipality can take to reduce their trash. In New England alone, there are about 550 municipalities that have unit-based pricing. Also, upstate New York, as well as Long Island, has a lot of unit-based pricing at the community level. It's something in Connecticut. We really only have one town that has true unit-based pricing, and that is Stonington. So what this looks at, this particular chart, looks at pounds per capita. That's the best way really to measure the amount of waste that we're generating and to look at how effective our programs have been to date. So if you look here in 1990, when I was working in the trash stream in Europe, Americans were throwing away about 900 pounds per capita per year. Now, with a lot of education, a lot of initiative, a lot of new technology, the average is about 740 pounds per capita per person per year. In Connecticut, that's about the state average as well. This has come to fruition because of programs like the bottle bill, better recycling, single stream recycling, curbside collection of recyclables. So all of those programs have all contributed to helping to reduce the amount of waste we're generating. Also, an important factor is that industry has worked on their packaging. Packaging has been down gauged, so it's thinner. So we are throwing away less material when the packaging goes into the trash. So overall, we've been moving forward or reducing our trash, but not nearly as much as communities that have forms of unit-based pricing in place, like Stonington, who's throwing away about 386 pounds per capita. Or another example that we use, Brattleboro, Vermont, which has unit-based pricing, and it's coupled with curbside food waste collection. So the Connecticut DEEP is very interested in communities that are interested in piloting a combination of unit-based pricing and food waste collection, because we know just from years and years of experience, from looking at Europe, from looking at Asia, these are the two most effective ways to reduce that trash and mitigate the risk going forward with the disposal costs as they increase. Just a quick look, unit-based pricing. Again, I've been doing this for 30 years. So some of these municipalities I worked with when they started the program, I tried to select a group of municipalities that are kind of all a little bit, different. Waterville, Maine is a small community. This example sort of demonstrates they created a unit-based pricing program. They started the program, and within just a few months of the program beginning, you can see the trash drop. It drops immediately and it stays down. This one is Dartmouth, Massachusetts, another program that I started. You can see they started it 2008. You can see trash came down. That was actually not even a full fiscal year. And then 2009 and so on, trash drops and then it stays down because people think differently about their trash in unit-based pricing programs. This one's Natick, just kind of shows the same thing. And this one is Sanford, Maine, and they started a unit-based pricing program, left it in place for a few months, changed their mind, decided to go back to a non-unit-based pricing program. Trash went back up, and then here they implemented unit-based pricing again. So it's a really interesting and effective program that DEEP has been promoting for a couple of years. And then the other program that it's important to look at is something called co-collection, and it's the collection and separation of food scraps so that they can be diverted from the waste to energy facility or the landfill. The food scrap recycling is something that's been popular on the West Coast. You may have seen it or know people from the West Coast. And there's a big advantage, especially in California, where they have a year-round growing season for the most part. They're collecting yard waste on a weekly basis. So it's really easy to add food scraps to your yard waste and divert to a compost site where that material can be, composted into fertilizer. We don't have that ability here in New England. We don't have a year-round growing season, and in fact, it's quite cold in the wintertime. So it's very difficult to divert the food waste without adding a extra collection route, and extra collection routes cost more money because they require, another truck going down the street each week to collect food waste separate from your regular trash. So something that we began looking into prior to COVID, I actually went with a group of municipalities from Massachusetts, and we went to visit co-collection facilities in Scandinavia and Northern Europe, where they have similar growing season to the US. It was really an interesting experience, and it's something that both Massachusetts and Connecticut are looking at moving forward with this type of a system. This is co-collection in one of the towns I visited, so my photographs. The co-collection itself, the idea is that you separate materials by color. In Connecticut, we don't expect that residents would be able to separate multiple colors, but we like the idea of a trash being in one color bag and food waste being another color bag, and then those bags are just separated at the household level. They're put into the same collection cart, and then they're collected in the same collection truck. So really just two fractions of waste, two color bags in the same vehicle. So you don't have to have an extra vehicle with extra mileage and extra expense driving down the street, extra emissions. The co-collection, again, just sticking with food and trash in Connecticut to keep it simple. It's an interesting process. It is not It does require the installation of a sort facility, which is an automated facility that actually, I'll go backwards here, where the truck can dump onto a conveyor belt. All of the bags, the colored bags go up the conveyor belt, and then they're sorted using an optical eye. So it's a pretty simple process, but it does require the installation of an actual facility plant that can separate the material. However, it is worthwhile because that food material can then be debagged and sent to an anaerobic digester, which is a way of taking that food and turning it into energy or biofuel. The process also provides a digestate material, which is actually can be added to your compost, and it's very nutrient rich because all of the food materials have been broken down, and they do capture a lot of the positive organics out of that material, so that you can mix it into compost and get a great compost product. Let's go back. I'll go forward here. Go back one more. So what we're doing, as Pam mentioned, in Connecticut, the new grant for $5 million comes out next week. We had a grant in place from last year. There was enough funding left for one municipality to apply so that they could pilot this co-collection concept. The community that applied was Meriden. The Meriden co-collection program will start toward the end of October. And what we're doing in Meriden is we're collecting food in an orange bag, food in a green bag, and trash in an orange bag. The bags will be given to the residents for the period of the pilot. So each household will get 2 orange trash bags per week and 1 food bag per week. If they need more bags, they can just ask for additional bags. The pilot itself is only in 1,000 households because we had limited grant funding. So we just chose 3 routes, 3 different days of the week, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, 3 different routes to do the pilot. But the pilot itself will measure compliance. It will help us understand what residents think about separating food from trash at the household level. And it will help us with the data that we believe we need to attract some of these sort companies to come to Connecticut. We actually have a couple that are already interested in sites in Connecticut, which is good news. What they're all really looking for now is some data and information about the behavior of residents and how much material, how much food is diverted per ton of material coming through a facility. So the Meriden pilot with just 1,000 homes is not really enough to satisfy these companies. So we would like to demonstrate over the next 4 to 6 months. We would like to have several other municipalities join the grant program, either entire municipalities like a Rocky Hill. You could join as a full municipality, or you could join just as a pilot with using a couple of routes. I'm going to go back. Let's see. Here, if it was a full-scale pilot, this is a very, very high-level pro forma. What we wanted to do in this particular meeting was just give you a high-level overview of how something like this could work. And then if it interests you, the process is with DEEP to just simply fill out a form that's coming out this week and let them know that you have a level of interest in learning more about the pilot and in designing a pilot. It doesn't necessarily mean that you're actually going to move forward with the pilot, but by filling out this form, you get to the top of the stack, the list, so to speak. We think a lot of municipalities will go after this. The grant itself, again, the pot of funding is $5 million, but the grant is sort of unlimited. So if a large city like a New Britain comes in and asks for $2 or $3 million, they may get $2 or $3 million. So the pot is limited. So we do encourage you, and Pam, I think, will work with the mayor to make sure that you at least fill out the form that says that you have interest. This is a pro forma that I worked on just quickly. Again, very similar to Meriden, but if the town of Rocky Hill did it, throughout the entire municipality of all of the single family homes, the grant would be somewhere around $350,000. Could be, I think you might need as much as $450. You might not quite need the $350. And this depends on several factors. The grant does pay for free trash bags for all residents. And then it also pays for all of any type of hand sorting that needs to be done during the process. It covers the cost of the data collection, and it covers the cost of any additional, mileage that might be accrued for your hauler to drop material at a different location so that it can be sorted. The Mira facility might not be able to accommodate it. So a pilot would include all of that. The pilot itself will save money for the town, actually save money for the residents, and it would help to gain a lot of data and information so that we can hopefully attract some of these co-collection sort facilities to the state. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen and take some questions, and I can go back if you have other questions about any of the slides. I don't want to get too much in the weeds. Generally, what we suggest is if this does interest you and you go ahead and fill out the application of interest, then we'll work with stakeholders, including council members, sustainable CT, any kind of commissions or boards that are interested in waste diversion. We can work to design a program that makes the most sense for the town.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. I will start with Councillor Duff and crew.
This is the littlest one. Yeah, this is Everett. He's got some good questions about going to bed. So you mentioned it's kind of interesting where we've got 550, something like that, New England municipalities that use this model. Only one is in Connecticut. So we have a lot of comparable towns that have a similar setup, but there's some education to do. So if we're looking at either a townwide or a pilot level, what do we need to do from an educational standpoint to get folks used to this approach? And how, based on your experience, how long does it take to pick up? Is it a couple of months? Is it a year? What do we think we're looking at for that curve?
Well, because your town is not too big, obviously you're bigger than the 1,000 household pilot in Meriden, but I think we would do a lot of grassroots outreach in Meriden. What we're doing is we're pairing students in the senior class that are part of the environmental club with an adult. Some are volunteers, some are actually paid employees from DEP, some are paid through the grant, and we're going to go door to door, literally, and pass out the free bags, talk to residents about, the importance of diversion, not just obviously diversion into the recycling, into the food bags, but also talk to them about diversion into other streams like textiles, collection, that kind of thing. So the education part, you hit the nail on the head. Stonington's the only one in Connecticut. It has been something that has been difficult to move forward. I guess the land of steady habits is definitely true for the state. And
about how much lead time do we think that takes? That's something that we plan for, or that we need to work backward from? We need a couple of months to plan, or how does that usually?
Yeah, so I think 3 months or 3 to 4 months is lead time from making a decision to do it, actually getting the grant funds, approval, and then actual implementation. I would say it's going to be 3 to 4 months. If it's townwide, possibly a little less if it's just a couple of routes.
And the last one, you mentioned the interest in, I guess, showing a certain level of, having a certain sample size to be able to attract companies in this space. Anything as far as a regional approach, if we throw in with other towns, or if other towns have success with this, will that help us make it attractive, or is it really 169 towns one by one?
Oh, no, I think we would try for a regional approach. It's something we've already begun working on. The Wallingford Covanta facility, which is no longer running as a waste to energy facility, no longer operated by Covanta, is a building that has a lot of space. So there are already people looking at that building. We're already looking at a regional approach there for at minimum the Scrog region, but certainly could incorporate the capital region as well.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Councillor Levine.
Great. Hi. Just had a few questions. It's kind of more actual user type question. So just thinking about different types of people who have to put their trash out, especially like seniors, carrying these bags to the curb as opposed to having the carts on wheels. How do you guys handle that, especially for folks that, find it a lot easier with the cart, on a wheel versus a bag? Are there other things you could buy to help bring the bags out?
So it would stay in the cart. So they would just go into the cart as is. They can go into the truck. They can be compacted in the truck. They are, the bags themselves are spec'd at a thicker gauge so that they can hold up during the compaction. So nothing would really change. It's just a matter of, in the household, you would just, separate food from.
Okay. So you still have your pull. Okay. So that answers
You
my
can
second.
still push your cart, right?
Okay.
Yeah.
And it seems like a lot of this is based on the users properly sorting their garbage, recyclables, which obviously we have some of that. This will take it like the next step. From what you've seen in the trials and things, how much of a human errors, what percentage of human errors are you seeing in the sorting, and how much does that really screw things up, or is there a certain amount of mistakes that the process can tolerate and still properly handle everything?
Yeah, so there is a certain amount of mistakes that you account for, and a certain amount of non-compliance. For instance, it's 11 o'clock at night, garbage needs to go out, you ran out of the right color bag. So, it isn't a completely perfect system, but we do find that people, most households comply right away. So typical unit-based pricing programs that do use a special color trash bag, you really get 99% compliance, and 99% of the people do it correctly. Again, I've been doing this for a really long time, and I've done a lot of waste audits. So something that is super exciting, you go through the trash, a truck, the truck dumps, and you literally open up every bag in a given truck, and you're documenting what's remaining in the trash. And in communities like Stonington, where you have unit-based pricing, they have a special yellow bag for the trash. You don't find really anything that's recyclable or reusable in the trash. And in the recycling itself, it's also very clean. So surprisingly, when people have a little bit of a rule and, it's a simple program to follow, you do get a lot of compliance.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Councilor Manuel?
No, I'm all set. Kristen, thank you very much. That was a great presentation.
Thank you.
Councilor Prakash?
So great presentation, lots of numbers, charts, trends, nice job there. Thank you. So quick question, there was one example of a town that went to unit pricing and then went back to regular and then went back to unit pricing. Can you talk a little bit more about that? What are the circumstances around that?
Yeah, so it's Sanford, Maine. They're the only town I know that has done that, but basically they implemented the program. There was a resident who didn't want to implement the program. He won the Maine lottery, so he won millions of dollars. He put up some road signs and basically lobbied council and said, let's go back to the old way. This, we don't really like it. So they did, and you could see, I don't have the chart up, but the trash does go back up. It doesn't go all the way up. And what's interesting from my, perspective and from being in this for so long, sometimes the idea of unit-based pricing encourages people to read the directions for the first time. So I think people do learn something and they don't go back completely to the old habits. But then a couple years down the road in that particular town, they were looking at a budget crisis. It did save them, I'm not sure the total amount, but was $600,000 or $700,000, but it helped them out with the budget. They voted unanimously to put it back in. So yeah, so the residents did like it. I think is that what that lesson kind of goes to show, is that they like it and they're happy with it, and then they wish they didn't take it out.
And the gentleman that had won the Maine lottery had moved away out of the state,
Right.
right? So he wasn't there anymore.
Great. Now, something definitely to consider. You gave us a lot to actually think about. So it was, yeah, thank you. That's all I had. That was an interesting, piece in the study, I guess.
Yeah, good question. Yeah.
Councilor Malero, do you have any questions or comments?
Thank you, Kristen. It was a very thorough presentation. There's a piece that maybe it's more of a learning thing for me, but we talk about compliance. Maybe it's obvious that I'm not seeing it, but if we're not compliant, what's the ramifications again?
So during the pilot, there really are none. We're just learning for the most part, and we're actually measuring those people that aren't doing it correctly. And that's, I think, going to be an interesting part of the data that we collect, because during the pilot, whether it's townwide or whether it's just a certain number of routes, it really wouldn't have to be mandatory. So it wouldn't be voluntarily necessarily. I think we'll ask everyone to please do it. Please. But if they're not going to do it, they're not going to do it. And, you're not going to put them in jail, obviously. So, I think for us, the data there is going to be really important in informing if you want to move forward with it and stick with it. I think you'll really begin to understand just how many people don't like it. And from my experience, I've implemented personally probably close to 100 of these programs. We work pretty closely with 800 municipalities around the country, looking at their data, doing waste sorts and looking at the number of bags people use, et cetera. And what we find is most people actually like it when they get going on it. So I think the idea behind this pilot is to provide free bags, allow people, nothing's going to happen if they don't do it correctly, just so that we can gauge the real reception from residents in Connecticut. One of the reasons, as one of the counselors pointed out, we only have Stonington, they're the only example. And I think it's just been a fear of change. This is something different. By having the $5 million grant, it allows, municipalities to kind of jump into this with no risk to the municipality and really no new cost to the resident. Just something that they can try, and then we can gauge and measure the behavior, and also just measure the attitude of the public. I think people will probably actually email and say to council members, you know what, we really like this. We think we should do it. That's my feeling.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Councilor Greenspan?
Hi, good evening, Kristen. I believe your program is primarily set to roll out to residences, not necessarily businesses. Is that correct?
Yeah, so you can have these kind of programs work in commercial settings, but this particular grant is just focused on residential.
Okay, and along those lines, Rocky Hill has a diverse residential population, single family homes, condos, apartments. Some are part of the municipal waste program and some use private. So I guess the question is, from your experience, how do you roll that out when you have different payers for sanitation still on the residential side?
Yeah, so it would, again, focus on residential homes that are currently serviced by the town. Okay. It could encompass later on at some point other residences that are not serviced by the town. The only tricky part there is in the commercial collection vehicles, we'll want to roll that out by routes or maybe by hauler. So one hauler may say, hey, we want to do this for everyone on our route. And that would include multifamily. It might include a strip mall with a deli. And, it would have to be done by route, because you're looking at it as each truck comes in, you're monitoring the compliance based on when that truck tips those bags onto the floor or onto a conveyor belt. If it's a full scale system, you need to spot check and make sure that they're mostly correct.
So it's not a problem, and I guess down the road there's an opportunity, if this is successful, that we could possibly move it to a commercial environment as well.
Yeah, so absolutely. In Europe, it is both commercial and residential.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, Councilor Thoreau.
The only question I have kind of piggybacks on what Councilor Greenspan was talking about. If we do a pilot for part of the town, should we try to do the routes so that we have more modest sized houses and we have more large houses? Would that make a difference in if we were doing that pilot to try to include all as many of the different types of houses that we have?
So yes, you broke up a little bit. I'm not sure if everyone could hear you, but I think generally your question is if you are just going to pilot, is it best to pick a few different routes that represent the different diversity throughout the town? So that's, yes, definitely. We did try to do that with Meriden as well. So.
Okay, thank you. I heard this morning, so I got the rest of it.
Okay, great. Well, I think, so you had mentioned that not tomorrow, but next week, Deep will release the application of interest.
Yes,
So,
actually, in theory, this week, I think that's what I'm told, but.
Okay. So it makes sense to me then that perhaps as a council, we should vote on whether we want to fill out that application of interest, which sounds like it's just a simple, hey, we're interested in exploring, right?
Yeah.
Because if it does turn out to be something that, is a smaller pilot program or a bigger pilot program that we're able to create, we don't want to miss a funding opportunity. So I'm gonna put that out there if anyone wants to make a motion to do that and discuss that.
Madam Mayor, I'll make a motion to move forward and complete an application to see if this is a fit for Rocky Hill.
An application of interest. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay. We're gonna go with Mimi because she's been sitting through all those meetings, not you, Pumpkin. All right, any discussion? All right, any further discussion? Okay.
Just, do we know how the grant works? Is like first come, first serve? Is it competitive? Do we know anything about that? I think it's a good idea that we're in there, but just know logistically how it's gonna play out.
So it is first come, first serve. And then as part of it, we need to, all the pieces have to come together. For instance, we'll need to have a location that can do sorting of the material. We think that would work in Wallingford, but, so it's both, first come, first serve. And then also all of the logistics need to work in order to get approved.
Anyone else? All right, so then we could take a vote. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Okay, it doesn't look like anyone is opposed. Okay, woohoo! that was many months of learning for Mimi and I, and we certainly learned a lot. And we always, joke about we know more about trash than we ever wanted to know. But this is really exciting, and so I want to thank the council, and I want to thank you, ladies. And so we're eager to explore. And great.
Thank you. I appreciate the opportunity. Thank you so much.
All right, thank you. Okay, let's see, where are we? New business B, discussion possible action, American Rescue Plan ARP funding options. So I think Councilor Greenspan had mentioned that in tranche one, we had 2.9 million in the ARP money. 1.4 we committed in our last budget, leaving us 1.5 to discuss tonight. I know there has been some communication between Councilor Greenspan and I believe Councilor Duff with respect to generating a list of suggestions. There was also some talk tonight at Public Safety. And so I will, I don't know, John, do you want to say anything before we start chit-chatting about this?
Me?
Yeah, you. I'm
A lot
sorry.
of Johns out there. I can hope that maybe
I
John
forgot
Moore will
IT.
take this one.
I forgot IT John is that too.
Well, I think it's wise to have a discussion about it going forward to get some ideas on what to use the money for. They did have some uses that they recommended in the documentation and so on, but
Okay.
we should put it to good use to help benefit the town. So I believe a discussion and a free-flowing ideas would be beneficial at this moment.
Okay. All right. So why don't I turn it over to Councilor Greenspan?
Sure. And Mayor, as you said, Councilor Duff and I have been exchanged some emails and text messages, just trying to encompass a list. Yeah, and many of the items are on both of our lists, areas of interest. So really, I'll throw them out. And Chris, if I'm missing something or misstating it, please jump in and correct me. The first item that I believe is actually on both of our lists is funding for pole-mounted license plate readers and cameras to assist the police department. The second item, also on both of our lists, worded a little bit differently, but the same concept. We had mentioned on our side of the aisle, broadband within some of the town parks. And in Chris's note from his side, they were looking at broadband within the senior housing community. So definitely broadband, and where it goes, we can work out those details. So we're kind of looking at that. Another area that we had mentioned was looking at premium pay or stipends for volunteer essential workers, specifically the Rocky Hill Fire Department and Rocky Hill Volunteer Ambulance Association. And the other item that we had looked at is a program for the Rocky Hill Library to allow for more diverse books within the library program, as well as one-on-one pods for training and interview processes, particularly with the COVID pandemic. And tonight in public safety, it was also added that it would be we believe it would be beneficial to add another full-time patrol officer to the police department. And I know, like I said, that was discussed at public safety, and Chief Custer seemed very receptive to having that added, where I did listen in on that meeting. It sounded like they'd be able to add another patrol officer instead of 5 days a week to 7 days a week. So that would be a plus there. And of course, we could discuss that. Chris, on your list, and correct me if I'm wrong on any of these or misstated, we discussed using some of the funding for new police cruisers. And one of the requests or suggestions was to start a pilot program of an electric vehicle within the police department ranks. So that was a piece there. A portion of the program to be used for assistance for local businesses impacted by COVID, particularly where there may be gaps that exist for these companies before they receive any federal or state programs that would be available. And along those lines, setting aside a portion for residents that are struggling, particularly groups like seniors, veterans, and families, similar to above, filling in the gap until other programs kick in. The broadband I mentioned, community health resources, mental health response team for non-criminal mental health emergencies and other high stress areas. And the last item, noting that with the note that this may not even be a cost, but holding a town job fair for those looking for employment. Chris, did I miss any or misstate any of them?
I think that's our list, and I appreciate everybody working on that. Certainly, I know that probably everybody on the council contributed to that, and we were just comparing notes on that level. And I think these are interesting concepts that we'll see what costs are associated with them. Certainly, the broadband has an interesting couple ways that it could be taken. Where we probably want to see is where it'll be most useful. There might also be some areas in town where It may not be a park, but thinking of maybe some of the streetscapes improvement where people gather, maybe if we have more of like a restaurant district, things like that might be an area for that. But there's just a lot of things that we don't know at the moment related to cost and even range and things like that. So I think this is a pretty good starting point to see how far the funding will take us and maybe where the most bang for our buck is.
John Mayer, is the addition of 5G, the 5G network on the pole going to increase folks' capacity to get better Wi-Fi and stuff?
John, you're on mute.
That's a good question, but I do not have an answer for it. I'm lucky enough to set up my cable TV set at home so that I can up the cable station instead of a snowy picture. So I think this is more of a question for Prakash Pankaj to answer.
Do you know?
I mean, I really don't know. I would assume, I guess 5G is the talk of the town, so it must be a vast improvement. So I would say yes.
Yeah, that's
Qualified, yes.
That's probably just one of the things Chris will have to put on our list because they are adding 5G. They're working on it. I think it's Sprint Mobile, which is one company. But that is something, a project that's going on in town. I don't know how long it will take, but potentially that could affect where we would set up broadband. Okay.
And if I could just add in, I think part of the concept in the discussion we had on it, it's particularly for the school age children. Some may have school provided devices, but may not have internet access at home. So by having it in a public park or outside the library or somewhere, they can go and have that internet access and complete a project. That's not saying there's not other areas, but that was kind of how that concept came about, making it a safe public place where a parent could take them or they could walk after school and complete a project.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And then just in terms of costs, I don't think I think there's only a couple of things that we know what the true costs would be, right? Like at this point, I think we know what it would cost to add a full-time patrol officer. And I think we know what it would cost to do the library books, though I'm not sure, to be honest with you, if the one-on-one pod is still being requested by the library department, but I know that it wasn't that expensive, but we do at least have the cost of the books. Is there any other costs that we know with certainty at this time?
I know that I've been in touch with Chief Custer regarding the license plate readers and mounting them. They don't have a final number yet. Okay. So far, it seems, and hopefully I'm not misstating it, there's a couple of companies that offer this product, and they're trying to look at it so it could be used regionally, so the information will be able to be shared with other municipalities that have similar devices. And it seems right now that while they've done a preliminary assessment internally, they have to bring engineering out to get an exact assessment. But it seems like the best opportunity right now may be a year-to-year lease that could be renewed on an annual basis. And don't hold me to the number, but the number's probably in the range of about $30,000 for the year, and that would provide cameras at 15 different locations. Basically, I want to say entry points to the town, roads that are used for in and out of town. So off-highway ramps, etc. But I don't want to misstate that because I don't have all the details at this point. That's just a ballpark number.
And John Mayer, did you get a rough estimate on that project? from the PD? Thought we had a.
Well, I think they got estimates from one company. They were trying to get it from, I think, three companies. The one company they did get offers a leasing program as well as an outright purchase. And it sounds like you could probably lease, I think, 20 cameras for $24,000 a year. And there may be some maintenance costs associated with that. To purchase it, it seems like it would cost about $8,500 per camera. And then each additional year after that would be $1,088 per camera, not including maintenance costs. So I think they may be favoring a leasing arrangement where it'd be perhaps $1,200 per year to lease a camera. Plus, you may have one-time costs of installation, and then you're also putting it up on a pole owned by another company. So I'm sure they may be involved in it as far as costs to put it on there, as well as making a decision whether to allow you to do it or not.
Or if they charge us for that space, right? I think that premium pole space we get charged for. All right.
One of the things that we had talked about was trying not to, as much as possible, encumber future budgets, given that we have these tranches of money coming in, but they are going to go away at some point. So depending on the cost of some of these items, perhaps we look at an outright purchase, even if we wouldn't maybe do that. If a leasing structure may make more sense. I'm not sure. I guess it depends on how about the final numbers come in, or if there's some sort of prepay arrangement. But I think Alan, when we discussed, we were trying as best we could to not tie our hands with more long-term expenses, knowing that these funds are going to go away at some point.
Mm-hmm. Anyone want to add to the discussion? Okay. I think because, given the situation that we're in with, property crime, it would make sense to go ahead and authorize the expenditure of the $180,000 for a new full-time patrol officer. And then also authorize the expenditure for Mary for the library to start to purchase their books so that they have a nice collection.
What's the book cost?
Alan, do you have that?
I did get a number. I know it's under $10,000.
Yeah.
I thought it was somewhere around $7,000 for books. I don't have one for the pods.
I don't have the pod one. Chris, Counselor Duff, do you have that by any chance from the library? That I think you're right. I think it was like 7 something. But we could always round that up to 10 to make it safe. I know that there is an interest in getting books that are both written by people of color and whose main characters are people of color. And that would certainly have a nice, meaningful impact on our library.
The note looks like 7325.
Thank you so much. So maybe we could just say 7,500. And then as we get information in about those license plate readers, we can circle back if you want. Okay. And then let's see. The broadband, how do we go about now tackling this? Do we want to wait for the 5G info? I honestly, John, Mayor, what do you recommend about investigating about broadband and?
Well, I guess it's more trying to establish what the town's broadband availability is throughout the districts and seeing where there are areas of gaps that could be filled. And then I guess figuring out how to go about filling those. I don't know, doesn't the utilities usually take care of that? And something like, or the cable companies, and they provide that service and so on. So I would think that if we were going to provide broadband, we need a third party. So it would be contact someone like the cable company in town, which I believe is Cox, or as you said, Lisa, I don't know how widespread the 5G is going to be put in, because they may be just focusing on dense population areas or residential areas, and maybe the commercial parks like Capitol Boulevard and that end.
Okay.
Is that something that we could potentially get a quote for, or I mean, we might even want to just look at what other town, I'm not sure other towns that have those arrangements, but perhaps we could start doing some of that due diligence.
Really, it hasn't been high on the town's radar to look into this, and how to go about doing it is, would be starting from ground zero to go forward. I don't really know what the playbook is on how to go about doing this without trial and error.
Maybe the easiest place to start is reaching out to Attorney Olson, because remember, Counselor Thoreau, in the beginning, we were talking, like way back, we were talking about broadband litigation. And yeah, and so I think she had said, before there's any court decision, if you wanted to get in on reserving a little space on our poll for a new company, it probably would be a good idea, because there was some intense litigation going on, and I don't know what ever happened with that. So maybe
I suspect when some towns start doing that there'll probably be an appeal at that point. I would guess. I haven't followed it. Just FYI, we have Cox, but there's also Frontier.
Mm-hmm.
I wanted to add that too, that also provide. When you need somebody to put it up, because we all don't know how to do it. So whether it's a third company or whatever, and you still have who owns the poles, and there's attachment fees and all that happy stuff. So, we have to find out, because we have to find out who's charging what and who's going to be able to do it.
Now that we're talking out loud, I do recall that CCM had a person who was assigned to this issue, this litigation issue. So let me go through my notes. Maybe that's an easy phone call, right? Just to kind of see, Chris.
Was the litigation issue different in that this was a town that was going to bring broadband in to be a competitor to the cable company, where here we're just trying to provide some free Wi-Fi in some areas. So I don't know if it's applicable to what we're trying to do, is it?
It depends who owns the pole. And there are, so I don't know. I mean, the municipality can use the gain for purpose like this, but like I said, I don't know if when you start to do it, if any of the companies are going to appeal because they're saying you're using their pole and everybody else has to pay an attachment fee and you don't. So I don't know. I'm just saying those are possible places where there might be appeals.
But it could be too that through CCM, there are municipalities that are more rural than we are, who are already doing the broadband through the ARP money. So that might just be a good contact right there.
Yeah, I think we just want to be clear on what we're trying to do, because we're not trying, like Councilor Levine mentioned, we're not trying to set up a competitor to get a monthly reduced fee, for of a residence. If we were trying to do more of extension, or you have it in a public place. And I think CCM is a great place to start with that.
Right.
Okay.
And along those lines, I think we're overthinking the word broadband. I think Councilor Levine's right on with Wi-Fi. And I use Elmridge Park as an example just because I'm familiar with it. Basically, what we're, I think, looking to do is run cable TV to one of the buildings in the park, use that cable, set up Wi-Fi and a couple of repeaters to give a coverage in the park, and nothing more complicated than that. Now, there may not be cable in the park. I don't know the details to that, but I think that's very different, Wi-Fi versus broadband.
I have nothing to contribute because I really don't know. Go ahead.
I just would weigh in and just say that, I mean, when I look at the list and I applies maybe what I'm thinking is priorities, I like trying to move forward on the public safety issues with the police, because those are other items are so well underway. But what's next to me jumps out the taking care of some of the individuals like the fire ambulance, frontline stipends, or the residents that are maybe more impacted by COVID, or businesses, especially the smaller Main Street businesses impacted by COVID regulation and mask mandates and what have you. I think, I'm just throwing it out there that from a priority point of view, I would reach to those items next.
I think that makes sense. And again, it becomes an issue of how do you tackle that? I think with our, volunteer ambulance and firefighters, obviously we know how many there are, and it's just a matter of coming up with an amount if that's something we wanted to do. And then the residents, I don't know how that works. I imagine that would involve some type of application process. And again, rather than reinventing the wheel, maybe we can reach out to CCM and see what other municipalities have done and then circle back on that.
Yeah, I mean, in following just the general state news, just even like a couple $100 being awarded to community college students, right? The state was forgiving community college bills in the amounts of like $100, $200, $500, that type of thing. It doesn't have to be a whopping amount. It seems like some of those little benefits are real and are go to good use. Even, I guess I'm hearing that the state is now going to be starting to audit some of the unemployment checks, and they're doing audits and asking for money back. So some people might be under stress there for a couple $100 and what have you. So listen, it may not pay the whole bill, but it might help them with their food bill if they're paying back a bill to the state.
Great. So then it really becomes a matter of like how much money do we put aside, and how do you divide that?
How to qualify them? Yeah.
Yeah. So, okay. And then the mental health response team. Counselor Duff, have you had any conversations with our human services with respect to that? Are you contemplating something through that? Because I know we tried to get that grant money for that, and it didn't work. So
just to answer your question, I have not. I think a lot of these are ones that we research, and depending on what the costs, we might be able to do all of them. We might be able to do, 2 of them. We're still in that research phase. So just as we think about the goals of that, a lot of our goals of what this is supposed to be used for, public safety is part of it, but also the public health measures as well. And certainly, mental health crisis is a big thing. We see tragedies can happen when, unfortunately, police have to respond to a mental health issue that gets out of control. Maybe there's not the right resources available. So this was something, as we were kind of just thinking about the best ways we could potentially use this, try and make sure we fund that side on the prevention aspect of it, especially if it's not violent, but there's a person in crisis. I don't know how well we are staffed for that. It's not something I personally looked at. It might be something that we could even engage the health district to get their thoughts on. Maybe there's a shared service model. Maybe we're doing great. Maybe we could use a little bit more. I'm not really sure, but that's something as we're doing these types of I guess brainstorming sessions, something we wanted to make sure that we were taking into account, because it could be a way of intervening in a number of crises. It's a very stressful time. I mean, it might even be something where we help fund the availability, if there's a gap there, like we're talking about closing these gaps, maybe we fund a 24-hour line or remote help. There's all sorts of different things, but a lot of the crises that we were dealing with before, economic insecurity, food insecurity, the opioid crisis, they haven't gone away. They're even more stressed because of what's happening with COVID. So as we look at community resources that we can bring to bear to help, solve some of these problems, we want to make sure that we at least see how we're doing in those items before we move forward. So that could be talking with our own resources, engaging with the police, seeing what types of call they have and the mental health resources that they feel are available to them, and checking with the health district as well.
Yeah, I know that when that $35,000 grant opportunity came by, one of the first things we tried to do was get mental health, social work kind of services, a little extra help for human services, because they have been saying for a while now, with kids having been out of school for so long and now trying to get back into school, they just expect to be inundated. And I think that they always were but they were, probably at their capacity for handling stuff. So yeah, that's a great thing. And we can reach out to Charlie too and see if there is something district-wide. I know that CCHD just implemented some type of app to reach out to different folks. So maybe it is a matter of like helping fund those types of things, like you said, like a 24-hour thing.
Yeah, I was thinking that on the mental health issue too, my mind went right to the kids going back to school, because they're facing that challenge of now having to socialize again, and you're hearing so much about that. And we, if they're back in school and so we have a place, an office, a facility, and they could get some counseling there. And I think there are some firms that are popping up that are helping these kids manage their social media, because they were so beholden to social media, which was great. But now they've got to go back to showing up in person, where, I guess that's creating self-consciousness.
Okay. Is it fair to say that if we were to prioritize, we can just move forward tonight with doing the library, not the pods, but the library books? And what was and the full-time patrol officer? Do we want to entertain a motion to do that?
I'll make a motion to go forward with the funding for the police officer and the funding for the library, as the mayor stated.
All right, is there a second?
Second.
Can I make a friendly amendment that they
Yes.
should be separated?
Sure. Okay, so we're going to separate those two, and well, let's do the
Jeff,
first.
it might be easier to withdraw the motion and just make two separate motions.
I'll withdraw the motion. We'll start over.
Okay.
Let's start with the library funding then. I'll make a motion to go forward with library funding as the mayor stated.
Okay, is there a second?
Do I put a dollar amount to that, Jeff?
$7,500.
$7,500.
Yeah. And there was a second I saw. Okay, discussion. All right, all in favor? Aye. Okay.
Okay, so now I'll make a motion to go forward with the funding for an additional patrol officer with an estimated at first year cost, I think it's 180,000, what they were saying, with upfront cost and everything. So.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
Okay, discussion.
Yeah, I have a couple of comments regarding that. First, the police department hasn't even filled all their vacancies from the last two approvals for positions. Second, this is a very expensive position, and this is lifetime. This isn't just a one-off payment. I really hesitate to move forward with this because we haven't seen the effects of the two new ones on the road and the visibility. We've seen a somewhat plateau in some of the crime going on that we've been worried about. So I think jumping the gun and hiring somebody or putting a position out there, funding it, is a little premature. And I think it should be pushed off at least 6 months for the next budget, where we'll still have this money to discuss spending. I think right now is a little too premature until the two vacancies are filled in and they're on the road after training. And then in 6 months, when we start budget discussions, we can talk about another added patrol position, and whether at that time it warrants another one or not.
Okay, thank you, Councilor Emmanuel. Anyone else want to say anything?
Yeah, I guess I'll make a
Councilor
comment.
Levine?
Yeah, I appreciate your comments, John. I guess what I would say is it's not a lifetime job because there will be attrition down the road. So if someone retires in 2 years or 3 years, we can make a decision then if we refill that slot at that time. So it's not
That never happens, Jeff. That never happens.
Well,
I've never seen any police department not fill a vacancy.
No, but that could be done at the budget time that someone could say, okay, we're going to.
And it has never, ever happened that they would say, you have a position here, somebody retired, we're not going to fill it. That's just from my experience. I could be wrong. There could be some other town, or that's what I'm saying. That's my fear, is that once you approve this, it's there.
Well, it'll be deemed at the time, but nonetheless, the option is still there. The other thing with waiting 6 months, as you said, it takes time to find the right officer to train them. So if we wait 6 months, it's going to be how many more months after that if we decide we want an officer. It's going to be a year from now till we get that extra officer if we wait that long, I fear. So I would be for going forward. And look, but we know we're going to get funding, a second tranche of funding, so we're going to have money for at least 2 years easily for this position if we want it, and then adjustments can be made later. I mean, maybe we need to make changes how we do things, be able to make adjustments. That's how businesses work. That's how we need to work more. We can't just say, well, it's always been done that way, and we got to continue to do it that way. We need to work a little differently, work more like the private sector at times. So that's why I say we go forward.
But I mean, there needs to be justification for an added patrol officer. You could say, well, we have money for 5. The chief's not going to say no. He's going to accept the 5. There has to be justification for an added patrol officer. We had a discussion this budget season about 2 additional ones, and we felt there was a need for 2 additional ones. So I just haven't heard a steady, strong argument for basically a 3rd one.
I think the most compelling argument, Councilor Emmanuel, is the fact that our population in Rocky Hill, as you've seen from the census, and as I don't know if you've seen the Hartford Business Journal, but Ray and I just had an interview in there. We grew by 5%, where the rest of Connecticut isn't growing. And one of the things that the chief has repeatedly told us is that this was the first administration to add additional patrol since the 70s and 80s. And we are now finally at minimum levels for staffing of that police department. And so adding this additional one is really a matter of keeping up with the population. I think that is the strongest argument, even if you were to remove this whole criminal property crime element. So I just wanted to add that.
Well, the 2 positions that were approved brought it up to minimum. Now we're going over the minimum.
Right, but minimum,
Right. The 2 that were approved brought us up to minimum, which is proper staffing. No one's going to say maximum staffing or we're above minimum or anything like that. They're going to accept whatever we give them.
I appreciate that. Thank you. Councilor Thoreau, we'll let Councilor Thoreau know.
It just seems to me that since we don't know what the effects of the 2 officers are, that it is premature. I don't know if we have to wait 6 months. I believe we said the first officer was going to come on duty in October, and the second one, they have to restart again so we don't know what the impacts of that, and that, we're not talking about a small amount of money. And I agree with Councilor Emmanuel with the unions and everything. they're gonna fight tooth and nail if we try to get rid of that position. So you're encumbering us, and that's not a minimal amount. I think if the new officers were on duty and we were finding that we still needed them, then yes, by all means, but I think it is premature.
Thank you, Councilor Thoreau. Deputy Mayor Sharma, did you have your hand up?
Sure, I was just going to respond to the question by Councilor Emmanuel as to justification. So the 2 patrol officers that were added to bring it to the recommended minimum for a town, a municipality of our size and population, was in response to scheduling patrolling on our neighborhoods, our streets, more or less specifically because of the increase in property crime happening at our residence. And now it's happening at our businesses as well, with the catalytic converter thefts increasing. So those 2 were very much in need for helping us with coverage and being available to our neighborhoods. The additional one that we're calling for now, we have to realize that these calls for service have been going up steadily, and we've been averaging, as I said, in public safety, between 21,000 and 24,000 calls for service, or under 28,000 calls for service annually. We're now on target to do over 36,000 calls for service this year. So we're going from around 21 to 2,400 calls a month, and we're averaging between 31 and 3,500 calls per month. So the demand on the staff, whether they're on patrol or back in the office, has outgrown our staffing. And in addition to that, all this new technology is requiring police hours. They're operating it. They have to do things. So when we call for maybe our police department to do a interactive real-time crime stat section on our website, somebody has to do that from the police department. This is a program that the town of Glastonbury initiated. And right now, I don't think our police department could provide that service to our residents without the additional staffing. So we're seeing calls and demands on the staff that I think warrant trying to give them a little bit better capacity.
I do think too, one of maybe, I don't know if this is more persuasive for you than the census argument, but one of the things the chief had said in public safety tonight is that, right now they're out there and they're patrolling and they're responding to property crime, but having this additional officer is going to allow them to now actually get creative in how they go about, what they're doing to be responsive to property crime. And that's a big deal, and that could make a difference. So just another thing I want to throw out there. And anyone else before we wrap up?
Yeah, I just had maybe an overall question. Just so, is the anticipation that the council will be approving each expenditure out of tranche 1 and eventually tranche 2, kind of line by line as we go? Because
only if you guys ask for it line by line. We tried to pass this too just now.
No, I mean overall, like each one of this, it's 7, it's the library books, it's the idea that the council has to directly vote on each thing that comes out of the funding. Is that how the allocation is going to work? Or are we able to more broadly approve things that as they come up, the town manager is able to fund them?
Yeah, I think though we have to, for purposes of transparency, though, we should really have a dollar amount. So that's why I'm saying, the ones that we have a dollar amount with, those are the ones that we can at least vote on. And then these other ones that we have on our list, I think we're all in agreement. We should explore them and try to figure out what those dollar amounts are.
Because, okay, and that's helpful because, one of the things is we, as other folks have mentioned, we have two open positions that we're looking to fill and bring online now. I mean, it would be nice to, empower the chief to say, look, we're not going to spend the money out of the 180. We're not going to spend it out of tranche one. If it turns out that you need that, if it's a month from now, or 2 months from now, if the right person comes up, they've got the ability to go there, but we're also not, encumbering it already. If it turns out that between new laws going into effect, the security tools we're getting, the additional patrol, that things tamper off. Because I do agree that, we need to be careful that we're not growing the size of our local government here. And while we've got money now for the next couple of years, this is going to be, 180,000 plus raises is going to be $0.1 mil. We want to keep hopefully our tax, goes up, but if things are the way we are, we just raise our taxes by $0.1 mil. And we want to make sure, like we mentioned, the Harvard Business Journal article, we keep our tax rate low.
So I would just ask, what new legislation is going to go into force?
There were 3 laws that, it's kind of sidebar, but there were 3 laws that went into effect in September 1. They had to do with notification of being able to, the departments being able to compare records, do a record check to see if someone has a repeat, is a repeat offender, which is supposed to cut down to catch and release. There's 3 other ones.
Those are actually though policies, they're not laws.
Yeah, policy allowances, procedural allowances, but no new legislation yet that I'm aware of.
If it accomplishes the same thing, it's almost 9 o'clock here. I'm not sure.
We're hoping for a special session.
I'm aware.
Yeah, I got you. What you're saying.
But there are a variety of new tools that we're bringing online, and we don't know the impact of those yet. And I think if there's a way to split the difference, say, chief, if you're empowered, if all of this going out into effect isn't, having the desired effect, we still need extra help, let's do it. But it's also not just creating a new position, because I agree with Councilor Levine. We could get creative, we could run a business, but when we're dealing with unions and town staff, and it just doesn't tend to work that way. It's another council voting 3 years from now to cut the police department. That's not going to be easy. 4 years, however many it is. So I think that perhaps we can err on the side of caution. We're not going to spend that money. If it's needed, we can allocate it. But just let's learn from what's going to be coming online shortly.
Okay. Councilor Prakash, do you look like you wanted to say something?
Yeah, I just wanted to say, Chris, I think, a lot of the concerns you raised and John and me raised, they are legit, and I think they're well worth discussing and critically analyzing, I guess. But they're really 2 big jobs of a town council like this, right? Or a town government is really schools, which we hang our hat on, because we all need communities which have good schools. That's why people live here for most part, at least families of school-age children. And the second one, and one can argue more importantly, is public safety. Now, I saw the pieces, over the weekend, where Governor talked about using the ARP funds to solve these problems, because he doesn't think it's a big deal. He doesn't need to take action, and local communities can do it. And that's what we are doing. I will leave it at that. If there is a case to be built, the governor has already made it for you. That's all I want to say. Thank you.
Yeah, but he can pay his taxes better than I can.
Councilor Greenspan, did you want to say anything? I thought you motioned like you did.
Councilor Prakash pretty much covered most of it, but he's 100% right. This weekend, the piece with Dennis House that Matt Lesser and Mayor Murata were on, they did a cut with the governor on that piece, and the governor's not in favor of putting a special session in. And he said the town should be using their ARP money to hire additional police officers and solve the issue at the local level. So we're basically saying, hey, if this is what the governor's recommending, we've tried everything we can at the local level. I know as a council, we don't agree on everything that we'd like to see at the state level, and that's okay. But there has to be a next step. And if the next step is allocating funds that were provided for that purpose, then I think that's what we should be doing, following the guidance of our governor.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else? All right, so we have a motion on the table, yes? So I will call for a vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Chris, did you have your hand up? 6, 7. Okay. And then those opposed? 1, 2. Okay. And there's no abstentions. Okay, great. All right. We're moving on. Oh my gosh. IT John, you are up. An update of the Town of Rocky Hill app.
Yes, good evening. Thanks for having me tonight.
Thanks for staying with us.
I would be here regardless, but thank you. So as you recall, I believe it was back in March, I came in front of you seeking approval to build a new website, select a vendor for a website, and a new municipal app. And thank you for approving that at that time. Let me share my screen here. Okay. So we began the work in June of this year. Again, I work with the IT department, so it was myself, John Nowakowski, helping me with this, as well as a lot of the town staff preparing all the content to be moved over to the website, and now really digging into the review part of it. So the website and the mobile app vendor is Civic Plus. The website is really close to being launched. We're just going over things with a fine-tooth comb. Then we can launch the website. The app was a little bit more of a challenge, and the vendor told us that the challenge was going to be with Apple Corporation, because we have to create a developer account with Apple. We started the process right away. There was a lot of attempts at getting the right paperwork to them, creating the account. I can just say, finally, as of 2:45 today, we were successful. I got someone on the phone from Apple. John Mayer was intimately part of this process because we needed someone with signing authority for the entity, for the town, to be responsible at the highest level for the Apple developer account. So between John and Mona today, vouching for John that he's a real person, we're finally in with Apple. So in the morning, I can make Civic Plus also an admin of that account, and hopefully that then will roll out very quickly. So the mobile app is designed to provide improved communications to the residents, which was something we identified back when we started this process about over a year ago. And it will enhance our ability to notify people when important information has been released or posted to the website. Most things will be managed on the website and then automatically migrate to the app. And it's also a place where frequently accessed information can be right in one place on your phone. So again, the website will do a lot of this as well, but the one difference with using the app is that anything that we post to the website that we choose to push out through the app will come up on somebody's phone as a notification. I mean, the standard process, if somebody subscribes to news or alerts on the website, would be they can either choose to get an email, or we can experiment with pushing out text messages. There may be some limit to the volume of text messages. We have to get a feel for how many users we have and if that will end up incurring additional costs. But we're provided with a block of text messages at the beginning of the year. But again, if somebody installs the app on their phone, they will receive things as notifications, which will make them be much more aware of a situation in town. So that's one of the benefits to encouraging people to install the app rather than just running the website as a mobile-friendly application. So some of the features of the app are, there's an alert center for townwide alerts, such as building closures, public health alerts. Think of the things that we normally in the past had put at the very top of our website with the little red dot, really urgent things such as snow closings, parking bans, things like that. That would be done through like an alert center type of thing. But a little bit more granular is, and as it relates to the website, is people can subscribe to kind of news information per department. So there'll be a widget on the website as well as a way to push that information to the app. For instance, for public works or for the engineering department, for paving projects. whatever the case may be, residents can subscribe to that notification system and self-select which things they want to see. It could be, again, department updates, program announcements, messages from the mayor or town manager, whatever the case may be. And those will, again, go to either email, text messaging, or if they have the app on their phone, they will get them as alerts and notifications. There's also a function of the app where people can report concerns that they see throughout town. It's on the website side, it's called Citizen Tracker, and it's done with forms. But right on your phone, you'll have access to the Citizen Tracker functionality and say, well, I have a pothole at this location. You can even use your phone to take a picture of that item and send it, whether it's anything in town, blight issues, or you have just concerns about streetlights or anything that somebody wants to report a concern about. And we will kind of have them preset into buckets of what the type of concern is, so that then the correct staff will automatically receive those concerns. And more so than it just being where it's a one-way system, if someone subscribes to our website, and we will encourage people to subscribe to the website, then when they report these issues, they can go back in and see the status of where things are. If somebody, has at least opened their request, wrote back right away that thank you for your, information, we'll look into it. And then as things get resolved, the citizen can go back and check their different requests. And we've said it before, it's a great way. We can even make it where all requests kind of are made public, so that the town departments can kind of get credit for doing all the things that they do behind the scenes all the time. We intend to have town calendars available on the app, and beyond what we do now, which the town calendar is really just these public meetings, but we want to fold in other calendars as well. Major park and rec events, anything with human services, certainly events that occur now at the new senior community center. We intend to have the calendar be a little bit more robust. Things like changes to the trash schedule, or say the transfer station is going to open, or shred it events, things like that, where now people have to go to the website and kind of dig a little bit. It'll all be, in a convenient spot in a calendar on the app. Of course, there'll be links on the app to other town departments, staff directories, and then meeting agendas too. Some people don't want to go to the website for that. Will just be a quick button to do meeting agendas. One thing I just want to point out regarding alerts, I'd be remiss if I didn't indicate that people should still sign up for ctalert.gov. That's where our emergency management operations, police, fire, and the other agencies, they rely on this now to get out the highest level notifications to residents. It's a statewide system that we've now joined. So encourage everybody to go to ctalert.gov and sign up for that. Things that we would be pushing out as alerts would be a little bit lower priority, but really relative to town operations. I'm hoping now that the vendor can just jump on this. This shouldn't be a big lift to design this app, because even on the back end, once I get control of the app, we can modify this stuff at will. We don't need extra programming. We don't need to put in requests. There's an app to work on the app. So hopefully they can just take work that they've done for hundreds of other towns, customize it for us, and we'll be up and running. So the iOS side, the Apple side, was really the hang up. There was no issue at all with being able to do this on Android. For some reason, Apple was just very difficult to work with. So as soon as I have an update from the vendor, which hopefully will be tomorrow or the day after, I'll report back when we can launch this. I'm thinking it's only maybe 2 weeks or so. We have a form that we've already sent to them with, the tagline that we want on it and some of the styling of the app. But really looking forward to getting this going, and the website as well. I'll give credit to staff again for, fulfilling all my requests to review information so that we launch the website in the best way possible. So is there any more questions about that? Just happy to provide that update for you.
Thank you, John. We really appreciate that. And we certainly appreciate all of your hard work and John Nowakowski's hard work as well.
You're welcome. John Mayer did a lot with this one. I didn't want to involve him at this level, but he was very responsive whenever I needed him to check an email or send me a authorization code on his phone. So hopefully now he doesn't have to worry about this.
I'm glad
That's
you
what a
were
real
able to-
person does, John.
Yes, thank you. And the
Well,
man,
sticking
Nate,
together.
we got a hold of Nate from Apple today. That he was the key. All right, thank you very much.
All right, have a great evening.
Thank you,
I'm
John.
sorry. Yeah, no questions, right?
I got a quick question.
Oh, I'm sorry, John. Go ahead.
John, did you have any desire for any of us to be like beta testers for any of this stuff, or do you have people internally who are doing that, or?
Yeah, well, when we get a hold of the app, certainly. I mean, I'd be happy to send around the link to the website as it is now. Just ask that you don't share it because there's still some holes in the information, but certainly happy to have you play with it, see it, check out the styling of it. We had different options for the design for the website. We had a committee in town hall, but none of this was done in a vacuum. We've always pulled the different departments in to make these decisions. But sure, I'd be happy to send around the link to the website.
Great.
Also, John, again, thank you for all the great work going on there, and it's been a while. So it's like we started talking about this in early this year. So I can't wait to actually see the finished product.
Yeah.
But couple of things, like on the website, we'll have the link. We can check it out. Obviously, we won't share it. So the timeline for the website, is it earlier than the app right now?
Yeah, I mean, I really could make the website live now and then just scramble when departments saw things that needed to be changes, but we're trying to just get final review from some of the most important departments. The PD are already signed off on it. I have some changes to make for public works and engineering because a lot of the content is public works content. I believe the assessor got back to me, things are fine. I have to work with HR. They noticed a few staff that don't still work for the town, so I want to eliminate those before we go live. But
the other thing I wanted to check with you was to the same idea which Jeff was talking about, and we have talked about this before. I don't know, like many moons ago. So about actually rolling this app out in some sort of like a kind of incremental like pilot basis, right? Like so that we don't hit like 20,000 people all at once. So I don't know if you have talked to Civic Plus, if there is what are their thoughts on this? Do you think if tomorrow, I mean, not everybody's going to down, I'm just giving you the worst case scenario, right? You launch the app on the 10th of October, let's say, and 20,000 people download it and they all get on it. I'm just wondering if there is a way to kind of roll this out to like, I don't know, 5,000 people first, or do they have any best practices they advocate?
I could find out. I mean, I don't think we would want to throttle back adoption if it took off. I also don't think we'll get 20,000. I think we're going to have the opposite problem, which is promoting the difference, why you would install yet another app on your phone versus just looking at the town website on your phone. And there are differences that we certainly can highlight. There are distinct advantages, but it would be great if we, had that much adoption that we were concerned that we couldn't manage it. But
sure. No, I was just thinking it from a capacity standpoint, right? From your capacity standpoint, I'm just worried about that. Like something like it gets too hard for you to like with everything else going on.
Well,
that's all. If it is okay, then it's fine with me.
I don't expect to have to manage it too much once it's up and running. Any requests, again, talking about that citizen request, they'll go automatically to town staff. Won't be a middleman for any of that.
And then one last question. So like, do you have for the app, do you have a timeline as well? So both are going to be sometime in October. Is that kind of?
Well, the event Civic Plus couldn't tell me, although I emailed them today to say, okay, we finally have the Apple account. It was all hinged upon the Apple account being secured. So now I'm going to follow up with them in the morning and say, what does that timeline look like? And I'm sure I have it in notes from when we started this back last March. But because it's really just replicating things they've done for other towns, they're really only buttons on the screen that link to places on our website. There's not too much functionality on the phone itself. So I don't think it's a heavy lift. I think it could be quick.
they have done it for so many people. I would assume that's why I was asking. Like, they must have really a ton of experience with this, doing this stuff, kind of stuff out. So, I think that's all I got. Like, I think it's great. Like I said, I'm really looking forward to it, and thanks for all the work at the back end.
You're welcome.
To be done, and you've done it. Thank you.
You're welcome.
And I think one of the things that we found out with the new CT alert system that we have is that it is really just for, like 911 level emergencies. Like, it's for very serious stuff. So we have lost, I think, the ability to do the push notifications for things like parking bans and some other aspects that, or brush pickup, things that aren't, and also there's a cost involved with that. So hopefully that is something that we could use this system for, either through those the texts that you mentioned. I'm not sure if there's fees associated with that, or if the app does the push notifications. That could be a nice way of closing that gap for those non-emergency but important communications, and be a carrot for people to sign up.
Right.
The other,
that's definitely the purpose of this, is that communication to improve it. We're relying now on people going to the website to get information, and that's just not how people work these days. You want it sent to you directly.
Especially if you're, there's a storm coming and you're wondering about running out and getting your milk and bread and all that.
Right. So we do have as I said, we'll have a block of SMS messages allocated to us. I'm not sure if it's monthly or annually, a large number. And based on the number of users we have and how often we decide to make an outbound message a text message, maybe we would only save those for some of the more critical ones, but normally people just get things via email. If people use the app, that reduces the amount of SMS that we have to, because we won't pay for the notification to come up on the app, only if we use the SMS system, if that makes sense.
It does, yeah, and that's another good reason for people to install the app as well. One of the things I think Weathersfield has this town, I forget if it's the Great Elm or the Great Oak, I forget. It's one of those, I think it's one of those two. They have a lot of community events as well. I'm not sure how they moderate or screen them, but it would be good to have events that are taking place in the community that people might be able to add as well, in addition to town events. I'm not sure if that's how we'd want to limit it. Maybe if it's just something that happens at the community centers, the park, or something like that, if it was a public event. But that might be a nice thing as well to get the word out, because it's always a shame when something happens and then people say, oh, that sounds great, I wish I knew about it. So that might be something to look into as well.
Right.
Yeah, and then also, I don't know if we can actually use, this didn't come up in discussion, but maybe something as we think about the ARP funds, if you need dollars for marketing or awareness, that might be something to consider, because I think, like you mentioned that adoption might be a problem. It's going to take a lot of, we just heard it's going to take 3 or 4 months to potentially get folks on board with the garbage plan, and that's going to be pretty up in front of people, because people do that every day. It's probably going to take a while to get a good threshold of adoption before it stands on its own. So something we might want to consider down the road. Certainly not tonight, but if there's funding needed for that, or a contest, or whoever knows.
Chris, I second that idea. I think Alan, you can probably work on that. I really like that idea of like promoting it a little bit, if we can. We don't need to spend a fortune on it, but I think it's a good idea. I would definitely second that.
Well, we can certainly run a promo on our YouTube channel about explaining what it does. On channel 16, that we have content that runs between the meetings, we can have a promo there. In the new senior community center, we have multiple electronic signage locations. That'll be up there, so people fly by and say, oh, I should install the app, things like that.
And I don't know if we can do it, but if it would say, a lot of people do Facebook on their phones. If we could do like a Facebook ad run for, I don't know, a couple months, not huge, don't want to be bombarding people and ruining their lives. But if you're already looking at the phone and you click the link and then you've got the thing to download the app, that get a lot of people there.
Yeah, absolutely. Because the targeted advertising on Facebook is not that expensive, and it's extremely targeted. You can say, I want this age group, people that only live in Rocky Hill, and they're not going to waste your ad money on people that aren't interested. And you can set a spending limit. Say, I only want to spend $200 a day, or I only spend $50 a day, and you see how it goes, before committing to a big campaign.
And thanks again for all your work on this. All the Johns, thank you.
You're welcome.
Could I just throw in real quick with it, John? If this is going to be ready in the next 2 weeks or before Fall Fest, would it be possible to create like a large QR code? And then anybody that comes to Fall Fest could scan that, and then we could maybe get our first 1,000 users within that night.
Little
Something simple
giveaway or
along those
something. If
lines.
people load the app in your presence, give them something, you know, small little trinket or something. But yeah, and that brings a good point up, is that the app is, we can change it on the fly. So as there's a big town event coming, we can promote those things on the app, you know, make more of the buttons be about Fall Fest. Here's the map to where the different vendors are. Here's, you know, this, here's that. Just for that brief period of time, change some of the parts of the app, still keep the most critical pieces. So that's something I'm looking.
Get a free beer at Still Hill, Kent, if you download the app.
You know, if you could have a plug over by the beer garden, that's a really good idea. I think a lot of people are going to see it. Yeah. Prakash, we can have like a sandwich board for you with the QR code on.
Yeah, or you embed something in the app, that information that people want, whether that's, we could work with local merchants that say, get a little 5% discount, but the information is only in the app or something like that. Partner with them, and different ways to get people to install it.
And be interesting. I'm not sure if this is more of a vision, but for myself, it would be wonderful if we can incorporate a neighborhood watch as a button on the app, similar to how we've had it in the old days, where neighborhood watch is all physical and everyone's looking out for each other's house. But imagine we hit a button and have a one-way communication out where everyone can see what's happening, or not see, but at least by a word. So again, just thinking out of the box.
Right.
But
I mean, we'd have to find a way to manage all that. There are existing, like in my neighborhood, I belong to a group, you know, that's the surrounding radius, and people post to the app all the time. I'll have to figure out what the app is, but we could certainly encourage people to go to those pre-existing systems and start to use it more. But yeah, any idea once it's up and running to improve it is certainly welcome.
Awesome. All right.
Great, thank you.
All right, we're good. Thank you so much.
great job, John.
Yeah.
Well, I purposely didn't, we're going to move on to the mayor's report. I didn't prepare one. I just have 3 reminders, because I didn't prepare one because I knew this was a super long meeting. So my first is not really a reminder. It's just a thank you to Connecticut Street Legends for the annual car show that they had on Sunday to help fight food insecurity here. So they do this every year, and they benefit our food pantry. And this year it was incredibly well attended. There were just rows and rows of cars. And I believe they're going to be donating more than $2,000. The second thing is Councilor Duff and I would like to issue a last call for applications for the Commission on Innovation and on Inclusion and Innovation. So we are going to accept applications until the end of the month, so September 30th. And then finally, it's that time of year again for the UROC Awards. So you can download that nomination form online on our website or on social media and help us recognize excellence within our community by nominating a resident. And the deadline for that nomination will be Monday, October 4th, so that we can announce our winners at the subsequent meeting on the 18th. And that is it. And so we will move to the town manager's report.
Yes, Dana formed a oral panel that interviewed 4 candidates for the emergency management director position last Thursday. Dana and myself are reviewing the results of those interviews today and tomorrow, and decide how to move on from there. Fall Fest will be October 16th, 3 to 8, rain date October 17th. Just a reminder that the town 6/30/2020 annual financial report did receive the GFOA award for Certificate of Achievement of Excellence in Financial Reporting. Again, new hires, just to mention that Steve Soplack, the town engineer, has replaced the retired Jim Salmi as Director of Community Development and Public Works. Alan mentioned that Mona is now the town finance director. I believe the mass, at this moment in time, the mass mandate will be in effect through September 30th. And the town did receive from the North Central Area Agency on Aging their designation as a community focal point for aging services. This recognizes basically our senior services, human services, community as a place where community members can find information and gain access to a full range of aging services. Town will be receiving a decal that it can affix to a window or a door. This was generated by applying for this award by Melissa Hicks, and I had to put in a couple of pieces of paper and so on. So we're designated now as a community focal point for aging services by the North Central Area Agency on Aging, or the NCAAA. And I'll entertain a motion to adjourn. I see two people were listening. I don't know where Prakash was.
Yeah, and I just want to say one more thing before we adjourn is that, you know, John kind of glossed over that recognition, but he and Mona did receive this amazing recognition for excellence in financial reporting. And so I you know, sent that out to the council, but I did not mention that on the record. So congratulations to both of you.
It's kind of like the Yankees. How many do you have, John? 27?
Yeah, he's
I've got a
awesome.
good winning streak going. I think it's up to maybe 22, 23.
Yeah, well,
Good you got you all there to put
Maybe
all
it's
these
higher.
awards.
Maybe it's like 30, 37. And that way I can use this as my pension number.
You can play it for the lotto. All right, so a motion, I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
Motion adjourned.
Second,
Second.
all in favor.
All right.
All right, thank you so much.
Everybody.
Night.
Bye.
Good night.
Good night.
Right?